Hello, my friends. Today we journey into the heart of the Hebrew Bible to a book known as Numbers. It's a book of journeys, of faith tested, and of God's unwavering presence. We find the Israelites after their exodus from Egypt. They are now at the foot of Mount Sinai, having received the Ten Commandments. The book of Numbers tells the story of their journey to the Promised Land. It's a story filled with challenges, triumphs, and profound lessons about faith and obedience. Numbers gets its name from the censuses taken at the beginning and end. These censuses were not just about counting people, they were about organizing the community. This was a new nation on the move. They needed structure, order, and a system of governance. Numbers lays bare this process. It shows us the challenges and the triumphs of leadership. We witness the constant interplay between human fallibility and divine guidance. This book is not just an ancient history, it's a mirror reflecting our own journeys of faith. We all face trials, we all question, we all stumble. Numbers reminds us that even in our doubt and fear, God remains faithful. He guides us even when we stray. Join me now as we delve into the book of Numbers. Let us learn from the Israelites' mistakes and be inspired by their resilience. Let us discover how their journey, thousands of years ago, still speaks to our own lives today. This is the story of Numbers, a testament to the enduring power of faith and the unwavering presence of God. Imagine, if you will, a vast and unforgiving wilderness. The sun beats down mercilessly. The wind whips up sandstorms in an instant. This is the environment the Israelites faced. Yet amidst this chaos, God brought order. The book of Numbers begins with a census, a counting of the tribes of Israel. This was not just about knowing their numbers, it was about establishing their identity as a people. The census organized the Israelites for travel and for worship. Each tribe had its place. They camped around the Tabernacle, the portable sanctuary where God's presence resided. This arrangement was deliberate. It symbolized God at the center of their lives. Even in the wilderness, there was order, structure, and a clear reminder of God's presence. Life in the camp wasn't easy. Resources were scarce. The people grumbled, they complained. But God, in His mercy, provided. He gave them manna to eat, a bread-like substance that appeared each morning. He brought water from rocks. He even provided quail when they tired of manna. Numbers also details the laws given to the Israelites. These laws covered everything from hygiene and diet to social justice and religious rituals. These laws, including the purity laws, were not meant to be burdensome. They were given for the well-being of the people. They served as a constant reminder of God's holiness and their covenant with Him. Within this system of laws, we also find the Nazirite vow. This was a special vow taken by individuals who wished to dedicate themselves to God. Nazirites abstained from wine and haircuts, outward signs of their inner commitment. We also encounter the famous priestly blessing, a beautiful invocation of God's grace and peace. These elements reveal the richness and depth of the spiritual life of the Israelites. With the census complete and the camp organized, the Israelites set out from Mount Sinai. Their destination, the Promised Land, a land flowing with milk and honey. This journey, however, would test their faith in ways they could never have imagined. The path ahead was fraught with challenges, both external and internal. The Israelites grumbled about the lack of food and water. They questioned Moses' leadership. They yearned for the comforts of Egypt, forgetting the bitterness of slavery they had left behind. These complaints were not just about physical needs. They reflected a deeper spiritual struggle. The Israelites were wrestling with doubt, fear, and the temptation to turn back. One of the most significant events during this leg of the journey involved 12 spies. Moses sent them to scout out the Promised Land. They returned with reports of a fertile land, but also of fortified cities and powerful inhabitants. 10 of the spies cowered in fear. They spread a spirit of doubt among the people. Only 2, Joshua and Caleb, urged the people to trust in God's promises. The Israelites, swayed by fear, refused to enter the Promised Land. This act of disobedience had dire consequences. God decreed that their generation would not see the Promised Land. They were condemned to wander in the wilderness for 40 years, a year for each day they had spent scouting the land. This episode is a stark reminder of the cost of unbelief. It highlights the importance of trusting in God, even when faced with seemingly insurmountable obstacles. Section 4. The Price of Disobedience, Korah and the Striking of the Rock. The wilderness journey was a crucible, testing the Israelites' faith and revealing their hearts. One particularly dramatic test involved a man named Korah, a Levite. Korah challenged Moses' leadership. He questioned the authority of Aaron and the priesthood. This rebellion was not merely a personal attack on Moses, it was a direct challenge to God's ordained order. God responded swiftly and decisively. The earth opened up, swallowing Korah and his followers. Fire consumed those who offered unauthorized incense. This dramatic judgment served as a stark reminder that rebellion against God and his appointed leaders would not be tolerated. Another significant event during this time involved Moses himself. At a place called Meribah, the people were again thirsty and complained bitterly. God instructed Moses to speak to the rock, and water would flow. However, frustrated and weary, Moses struck the rock twice with his staff. Water gushed out, but Moses had disobeyed God's specific instructions. This act, seemingly insignificant, had grave consequences. Moses, by his disobedience, failed to uphold the sanctity of God's name before the people. As a result, God decreed that Moses, too, would not enter the Promised Land. This story is a sobering reminder that even the greatest leaders are not above God's law. It highlights the importance of obedience, even in the face of immense pressure and exhaustion. Section 5. Onward to Moab, Victories and Prophecies. Despite their setbacks and rebellions, the Israelites journeyed on. They continued to experience God's protection and provision. They won victories over enemy kings, demonstrating God's power and faithfulness. These victories, however, were not through their own might. They were reminders that God fought for them. One particularly intriguing episode involves a non-Israelite prophet named Balaam. Balak, the king of Moab, feared the Israelites. He hired Balaam to curse them. Balaam, however, was a man who, despite his flaws, sought to follow God's will. Time and again he refused to curse the Israelites. Instead, he uttered blessings, declaring that those who blessed Israel would be blessed, and those who cursed them would be cursed. Balaam's prophecies are remarkable. He spoke of a future king who would rise from Israel, a star out of Jacob. This prophecy would find its ultimate fulfillment in Jesus Christ, the Messiah. Even in the midst of their wilderness wanderings, God's plan of salvation was unfolding. He was using even a pagan prophet to pronounce blessings on his chosen people. The journey from Kadesh to the plains of Moab was a time of both trials and triumphs. It was a time of learning to trust God's promises even when they seemed impossible. It was a time of experiencing God's faithfulness, even when they were unfaithful. And it was a time of glimpsing the future hope that God had in store for them. Section 6. Preparing for Promised Laws and Land Allocation. As the Israelites approached the Promised Land, a new chapter began. The older generation, the one condemned to die in the wilderness, was passing away. A new generation, one that had grown up witnessing God's miracles and learning from their parents' mistakes, was ready to take their place. Moses, in his final days, delivered a series of speeches recorded in the book of Deuteronomy. He reminded the people of God's laws, urging them to obey and live by them. He emphasized the importance of justice, compassion, and faithfulness to God. These speeches served as a parting charge, a guide for the new generation as they prepared to enter the land promised to their ancestors. Detailed instructions were given for dividing the land among the tribes of Israel. Each tribe received its inheritance, a tangible reminder of God's faithfulness to his promises. The land, however, was not given to them as a reward for their righteousness. It was a gift, a manifestation of God's grace and their covenant relationship. The preparations for entering the Promised Land were not just about logistics and law-giving. They were about preparing their hearts. They needed to remember the lessons learned in the wilderness, the importance of faith, obedience, and dependence on God. They were on the cusp of inheriting a land flowing with milk and honey. But more importantly, They were inheriting a relationship with the God who had led them, sustained them, and was now bringing them home.